Welcome to Hannity. We're live with a lot of breaking news we will be covering throughout the hour, from the 2020 Democrats refusing to hold a debate here on the Fox News channel to the sentencing of Paul Manafort to a brand new scandal surrounding Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Also tonight, Glenn Beck. Remember, he did not support Donald Trump for election. Where is he on Trump today? He'll join us in a minute. Also, Karl Rove. He's going to weigh in on the state of the Republican Party. We begin tonight with our top story, a Hannity Watch featuring what is a sad and scary radicalization of the Democratic Party. Everybody should be concerned. Now, remember, just a few decades ago, there were racist, anti-Semites, bigots. Well, you think back, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, and some of the past history of the Democratic Party, we've outlined that history. In fact, congressional Democrats overwhelmingly voted against the '64 Civil Rights Act. 112 Democrats voting against it, including Al Gore's father. The 1965 Voting Rights Act was largely opposed by Democrats, a whopping 70 Democratic lawmakers opposing those important protections for minorities in America. And one of the longest-serving Democratic rock stars in the U.S. Senate was a former Klansman, somebody that Hillary Clinton has mentioned as her mentor, Robert Byrd. Now, unfortunately, tonight, the more things change, sadly, we're beginning to see the more they stay the same. We have freshman Congresswoman Omar, who has now exposed her party's all-too-cozy relationship with virulent anti-Semitism, constantly pushing anti-Israeli conspiracy theories. She called the world's only Jewish state evil, speculated that its citizens were hypnotizing the world. She continuously uses anti-Semitic, characterizations about Jewish people and money and Jewish dual loyalty to Israel. But as of tonight, Congresswoman Omar has faced zero consequences for her blatant and constant display of anti-Semitism and remains on the important Foreign Affairs Committee. Now, we have 12 pro-Israel, pro-Jewish organizations have called on Speaker Pelosi to remove Omar from that committee. But that's not going to happen. Pelosi is now throwing those groups right under the bus and making the lamest of excuses for her anti-Semitic colleague. Let's take a look.
When you cross that threshold into Congress, your words weigh much more than when you're shouting at somebody outside. And I feel confident that her words were not based on any anti-Semitic attitude, but that she didn't have a full appreciation of how they landed on other people, where these words have a history and a cultural impact that may have been unknown to her.
I'm sure Speaker Pelosi will give the same considerations to Republicans when they say similar things, God forbid, or she'll make excuses for anybody. Now, Pelosi, sadly, is not the only Democrat giving cover to Congresswoman Omar. The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee is also refusing to take the necessary action against the anti-Semite on his committee. Take a look.
At what point do you say to her, Congresswoman Omar, look, you're not on this committee anymore. You strip her of your seat. Are you close to that, or at that point?
No, I'm not close to it. First of all, it's not up to me. This is done by the leadership. I don't know that would do anything except exacerbate the situation even more. I'm looking to get rid of anti-Semitism, not looking to punish anybody.
Biggest problem here is this keeps happening with Congressman Omar again and again. And believe it or not, it gets worse. Democratic Majority Whip James Clyburn actually saying to The Hill that Omar's life experience is way, quote, more personal than the children of Holocaust survivors, so everyone should give her a break. All right, well, I'm not sure if most Americans agree with that analogy. We did lose 6 million Jewish souls were slaughtered in the Holocaust, and that's not all. Many 2020 presidential candidates, they are also supporting Omar, including Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren. So too are many other prominent Democrats on Capitol Hill. We've got the tape. Take a look.
I think it's just part of a learning process that we have as a country, frankly.
There are different perspectives. My perspective is that her comments were inappropriate, but that she has apologized and that we should move on.
I'm looking to get rid of anti-Semitism, not looking to punish anybody.
Ilhan Omar is a refugee from Somalia. She comes from a different culture. She has things to learn.
She apologizes again and again and again. Now, this is really now the party of literally accepting what is pretty virulent anti-Semitism, bigotry, and perhaps most alarming and most telling, part of this entire scandal is that a House resolution that was to condemn anti-Semitism, it didn't have enough Democratic support to even bring it to a vote because they knew it wouldn't pass. Well, that was until Speaker Pelosi allowed Congresswoman Omar access to literally help in the editing of the new resolution. You can't make this up, and it doesn't mention her name. And this bill condemned pretty much every horrible group of people: white supremacists, neo-Nazis, KKK, white supremacists who murdered 9 African Americans in 2015, condemning bigotry against Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, and, also condemned anti-Semitism. Didn't mention her name, not once. Now, the very reason why this condemnation was to be written in the first place. It also made no mention of Congresswoman Tlaib, who wrote a column for Louis Farrakhan's racist and anti-Semitic newspaper. It also made no mentions of the various Democrats who associate with Linda Sarsour, another virulent anti-Semite. She has publicly supported Sharia law and female genital mutilation, like 2020 contenders Kirsten Gillibrand, Bernie Sanders. Kirsten Gillibrand was on stage with Sarsour. Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu. And then, of course, Representatives Ocasio-Cortez and Tlaib and so many more. Where is the moral, simple strength to just stand up to this bigotry? Where's Nancy Pelosi? Now, there's a reason why she's acting this way. And the truth and the reality is she really knows deep down in her heart she is no longer Speaker. She lives in complete fear and panic and is totally and completely controlled by this fringe, radical, socialist, anti-Semitic elements in her party. She knows that if she doesn't accommodate their extreme whims, in this case of Congresswoman Omar or Tlaib or Ocasio-Cortez, she will be overthrown from that all-important position. So tonight, Nancy Pelosi is merely the Speaker of the House in name only. The radicals are pulling the strings, and it's a pretty scary picture. And today we learned that Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been hit with a brand new complaint, now this time over her boyfriend's email account. Now, the ethics complaint alleges that Ocasio-Cortez actually obtained an official mail.house.gov email address for her boyfriend by falsely designating him a staff member. This is now the third recent complaint filed against Ocasio-Cortez. She also received 2 FEC complaints, including one accusing her of illegally funneling thousands and thousands of dollars in campaign funds to her boyfriend. Another alleging that her campaign manager improperly funneled nearly $1 million from the campaign to private business. That one in particular, but they're all extremely serious issues that could result in charges as it relates to campaign violations. That's if we have equal justice under the law. And according to reports, Ocasio-Cortez may soon face even more legal trouble, with an impending ethics complaint surrounding the improper, literally commingling of campaign and government social media accounts in order to raise money. Like every other good socialist, she appears to be pretty corrupt to the core, especially now with money involved. And tonight, she represents everything that is wrong with this new radical, extreme Democratic Socialist Party, a party that is excusing their own bigotry and anti-Semitism, a party that is pushing the most radical socialist economic policies that will guarantee America spirals into a depression. It's that serious. A party that has gone so far to the left, they won't even hold a debate on the Fox News channel. By the way, I won't be hosting, don't worry. Let not your hearts be troubled. A pretty gutless move by Democrats. And yesterday, President Trump, he responded on Twitter, writing, quote, Democrats just blocked at Fox News from holding a debate. Good. Then I think I'll do the same with the fake news networks and the radical left Democrats in the general election debates. Well, that makes sense, given that every single second of every 24-hour day, these other networks are totally, completely dedicated to one thing and one thing only: trashing, smearing, besmirching, and destroying President Trump and anyone that likes him. And I'm sure these networks would love to hold future Republican debates, despite, of course, constantly dehumanizing and lying about President Trump and never admitting it. In reality, we know that 2020 Democrats, they're just too afraid to face real questions from fair and balanced journalists here on the Fox News channel and our news division. Journalists who don't buy into the conspiracy theories and fake news that will ask fair and tough questions. You know what? They're not in the tank like CNN and MSNBC. On this network, we distinguish opinion and news. Obviously, I am a talk show host. And I've explained that job for all the people that want to listen. They don't seem to understand what it is we do. Journalists who won't feed questions to their favorite candidates ahead of time. Remember, CNN did that for Hillary Clinton. Remember in 2016, Hillary Clinton's campaign totally ignored huge blocks of voters that she considered deplorable. The rest is history. Maybe this radical crop of 2020 Democrats, maybe they'll learn from her mistakes. I tend to doubt it. Okay, tonight, before we get to our guests, we have an important update. Hannity watch on Mueller's witch hunt. Well, today, Paul Manafort was sentenced to 47 months in prison. Now, that's just shy of 4 years. Now, this is for tax fraud, bank fraud, other crimes, not at all, as the judge pointed out in very strong terms today, nothing related to Trump-Russia collusion. Nothing to even do with the time that Manafort worked for Trump, which was, I think, maybe 100 days. Now, Manafort could have been sentenced to 19 to 24 years if Mueller got his way. Obviously, they wanted him to die in prison for cheating on his taxes and lying on loan applications. By the way, free advice, pay your taxes. The federal judge called those guidelines excessive. The judge has also gone out of his way reminding people this case has nothing whatsoever to do with the Trump campaign and Russia collusion. This is a witch hunt. Remember the Judge Ellis in this case had said, oh, they want to put the screws to Manafort so he'll start to sing or compose. We know what this is all about. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. All true. And now 4 years in jail for Manafort. Now, that's not stopping, by the way, the mainstream hate Trump media mob from taking a joyous victory lap. By the way, when is Hillary going to be charged? Take a look.
It's sort of like when they wheeled Hannibal Lecter in, you know, on that gurney in Silence of the Lambs. I have very little sympathy for Paul Manafort at this point.
You impeach if it's the only option for protecting the country from someone, you know, his campaign chairman not working in the American interest.
His days of $10,000 suits are over. No matter how this plays out, he's going to prison for some period of time, most likely a long time.
Paul Manafort's case and even Michael Cohen's case. Pay your taxes, and if filling out a loan application, don't lie. Good advice. Obey the laws. For years, the mainstream media breathlessly reporting conspiracy theories about Trump stealing the election with Russia, and there was collusion. They told you Russia was blackmailing Trump. They reported about trips to Prague that never happened. Remember, they reported that Donald Trump had 2 hookers in his suite at the Ritz-Carlton, urinating on his bed. It never happened, as so many other lies were told by the media. But they're celebrating the sentencing of a 69-year-old man over charges that had absolutely zero to do with President Trump or his campaign. And they take apparently great joy in all of this. We'll have more on this later in the program. First, joining us now to react to our top story, America First Action Senior Advisor Sean Spicer, Fox News contributor Dan Bongino, civil rights attorney Daryl Parks. You know what I see that happened when the Democrats didn't have the votes yesterday to rightly condemn, Daryl, Congresswoman Omar. And then Ocasio-Cortez, she was supporting Omar. And then they come up with this ridiculous resolution. We'll just condemn everything, but we won't mention Congresswoman Omar that's causing the action in the first place. You know what I see? I see a very scared, frightened Speaker of the House that knows that she will either do what this new extreme element of her party says, or she will lose her position as Speaker.
Well, let me say this, Sean. I think that the Speaker knew that she had to deal with the issue. Obviously, none of us are in support of bigotry, and the Democrats had to answer the issue today, and they did via resolution. And so it's a party with a lot of viewpoints at this point, and I think the Speaker's leading well. I think that certainly the newer Congress people
they didn't have enough
have to
votes.
be careful.
Would you get on the stage with a woman that supports Sharia law, genital mutilation of women like Linda Sarsour? Because Kirsten Gillibrand did get on a stage with her. Others are friends and support her, prominent Democrats. Do you think hanging out with such an individual, if a Republican did it, what do you think the reaction would be?
I think without question, I'm a strong supporter of AIPAC and the Israel community.
What would the reaction be if it was a Republican? It's a simple question.
It wouldn't be a good question.
Would you get on stage with that person? Yes or no?
I think you have to be careful who you're seen with.
Would you get on stage with Linda Sarsour, who we know is a virulent anti-Semite herself?
I don't know that person, and I can't comment on it, but I think we certainly decry anti-Semitism, and you have
Dan
to
Bongino, I don't
be
think you
careful
would.
about these new voices.
You know, Sean, Daryl's right. They do have a lot of viewpoints, the Democrats. Socialism, infanticide, anti-Semitism. And I'm just curious as to why Daryl can't answer a simple question. It's obvious what Ilhan Omar said was an anti-Semitic trope meant to attack the state of Israel and the Jewish people. It's just stunning that the Democrats could not vote, Sean, on a simple resolution condemning anti-Semitism. Sean, this isn't hard to do. They tripped over each other to get away from this thing and threw everything in there and confused and muddled the entire mess, because that's what Democrats do.
You know, Sean, there is something called selective moral outrage, and we're seeing an awful lot of it. Now, if Justice Kavanaugh is accused of something from when he was a high school student, the mantra was, I believe. We have a lieutenant governor, a Democrat in the Commonwealth of Virginia, lieutenant governor accused of rape with witnesses that say it was stated at the time and other serious sexual assault allegations. I don't hear anybody saying I believe. They say they care about Dreamers and DACA. They won't even sit down with President Trump to even negotiate a deal that would help those people. We see it on a lot of issues. If this was a Republican, I think we'd get a very different response from the Democrats.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, the Democratic Party in the last 2 months has become unrecognizable from the Democratic Party of 2 years ago. They're embracing socialism, and now they're washing away this anti-Semitism that one of their members. And you played the clip. Member after member of their party got up there and excused it. Oh, she's from Somalia. She's a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. This is not someone who just got here yesterday, and even if it was, it shouldn't be excused. But it is kind of disgusting to see these senior members of Congress in the Democratic Party who, as you point out, have outrage about everything that going down to little Billy at Thomas Madison middle school says if they're a Republican. But one of their own members does it. They talk about how she didn't understand what she was saying. It really wasn't in her heart. And yet they're outraged by every Republican, every conservative that does anything that they deem inappropriate. It's disgusting. And the idea that they are doing this to our closest ally, Israel. And it wasn't just about Israel, because one of the members tried to make that an issue. She talked about it was the only reason that some members support them. It's all about the Benjamins, trying to imply that it was a financial payoff to the Jewish people. I mean, what she has said and what they are excusing
were numerous and frequent. Yeah, they were numerous and frequent.
And this shouldn't be a close call.
I have an exit question for everybody. I'll bet any amount of money they're going to be right back in this position sometime probably in the near future. What do you think? Sean's laughing. Is that a yes?
What's the over-under? I think within 4 weeks. Look, she went from being condemned to writing the resolution. Within 4 weeks, we're back where we were and trying to figure out how we condemn her, how we figure out how to isolate her, how to express outrage again with her. But they have now created this problem. And frankly, instead of punishing her, they've emboldened her.
Well, let me say this. I think there's no place of bigotry nowhere in America. And anytime we see this type of comments by anyone who's anti-Semitic, anti-black, we have to speak out.
I think you should tell that to your party, Daryl, but I do commend you, of course. I know you're a good man. Dan, last word.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear Daryl say that. I agree. I just wish Nancy Pelosi and the leadership of the party, Steny Hoyer and others, would take a more appropriate, strong stance against us. That's the only way it's going to stop, Sean.
All right, thank you all for being with us. When we come back, the return of Glenn Beck to the Fox News channel. All right, he opposed him in the election. Where does he stand on Donald Trump today? He'll be here with answers. Also later, an investigation into Joe Biden that will shock you and may very well prevent him from ever becoming president. That's up straight ahead. Busy news night on Hannity. All right, so one of President Trump's biggest skeptics during the presidential primary was conservative radio and television host Glenn Beck. Well, he now says he would gladly vote for Trump in 2020. He's here to explain that and weigh in on the new radical extreme Democratic Socialist Party, the anti-Semitism scandal. Glenn Beck himself, also the author of the upcoming book, Addicted to Outrage. All right, good to see. You are not being brought on this program in any way. We got along great for a while. You were very generous to me at one point when I needed a radio studio, and you never charged me a penny, and you gave it to me for like a year.
Sean, listen to me. We both believe that our country is in trouble. We're both men that are very passionate, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm more than happy that you reached out and wanted to talk.
Let me ask you, because look, you've always been an entertainer and performer in so many ways, and you know what? Everybody's views vary. We watched the Cheetos. The day after Trump was elected, you know, you said you compared Trump's win to what happened in Germany in 1933. Then you really lost me when you were hanging out with Samantha Bee. I thought that was, to me, you know, a different point. Tell us about
what changed you. I wasn't hanging out with Samantha. I wasn't hanging out with Samantha Bee. Look, I think I've been very consistent. I was judging Donald Trump on his record prior to being president of the United States. That's all you had to judge him on. I said after the election that he is my president. He is all of our presidents, and it is in our best interest that our president succeeds. And I want him to succeed. And I said over and over again, I hope that I'm wrong. And if I am, I'll be the first to admit it. Once he got into office, now he's the president. So now I'm not judging him on the past. I'm judging on what he's doing. And I call balls and strikes. And quite honestly, Sean, early on, I said, I never thought he would do that. I never thought he would do that. I never thought he would do that. By the time he got to Israel, he was proving me wrong every step of the way on his policies. I was happy, thrilled to say he's doing the things he said he would do. I think the problem has been, since he got into office on policies, the Republican Party. The Republican Party, he is the greatest misdirection of all time. All he has to do is just tweet something, and the media goes crazy. They could have passed anything, and he would have signed it. They didn't. I ask, what's wrong with the Republican Party?
You know, to me, there are way too many Republicans. We learned this over Obamacare. Show votes for repeal and replace, 65 of them. Real votes, spineless, visionless, feckless. Nothing.
Same thing with the border.
I'm not a
Same
conservative
thing with the border.
either. You know, the only thing is, and I might have had an advantage that you didn't have, and like you, I went out on a limb. I told my conservative audience what I knew about Donald Trump. And if you looked at his record, gave money to Democrats, even Hillary Clinton said nice things about Democrats. Mm-hmm. And I always knew that that was him playing the political game. He even said it. I'm playing the game in New York so I can keep my buildings going up, electricians, plumbers, steel workers working, and I'm still in business, because otherwise you'd be shut out. As you look at the things he's done, and the way I look at it, biggest tax cuts, conservative justices, fighting like with everything he's got to get the border wall because he made the promise. Israel is another. Getting out of the Iranian deal. Even the concessions that he got,
standing for abortion, saying that he's against socialism. I was there at the State of the Union, and I watched the Democrats. I was sitting right across from the president in the back, and that's the way that thing should be shot. You should be able to see who's texting, who's laughing, who's poking each other, who's mocking. Sean, I was in the State of the Union,
and I
never thought I would say this.
Beck, you have connections.
I don't know. I never thought I would say this, but I left there thinking I don't think I would have had the restraint that Donald Trump had. They were hissing him. They were mocking him the whole time, and you didn't see it or hear it on television because I went back and watched. There is a clique now in the Democratic Party that are as radical can come.
Well,
I remember when I was told I was a racist for saying that people were socialist and the Democratic Party was going to become anti-Semitic and socialist. They'd take their mask off, was my quote, because that's who they are and they want to say that. Well, here we are. And we are now at a point where if you... Go ahead.
Well, let me then ask this. You see the new Green Deal. No planes, no cows, no cars, no oil, no gas. The problem is it's not just one Congresswoman. It's 100 Democrats at least and 2020 contenders. This is real for them. And then you add to that this absolute disgrace. They can't even condemn Congresswoman Omar in this case today. And you look at where they stand. And more importantly, I think the biggest abuse of power, corruption scandal in history as it relates to the deep state, those at the top of the FBI, not rank and file, those in the Justice Department, what they have done and still not held accountable, but I hear they will be.
I will just tell you this. The new Green Deal is one of the most frightening things, because if you actually read the bill, forget about the cars and stuff. They don't care. They don't care about the green thing. The second part of that is the fundamental transformation of our economic system, and that is in there. They are looking to transform our system. When they say the free market system doesn't work and it's not going to be around long, they mean it. And Democrats, the good Democrats in the center of the country, who are not just playing politics, they've got to wake up to who is the Democratic Party today. These people are serious radicals. They have serious issues with race and anti-Semitism. They are serious socialists. They are not talking about Sweden. That is a free market with a lot of welfare on top of it. It's not a socialist country.
Well said. Last question, Glenn, if you don't mind. Will you vote for Trump in 2020?
You know, Sean, I think when you are looking at avowed socialists that want to end the free market, they're not even talking about abortion now. We're talking about third trimester abortions. When you are sitting here talking about infanticide, when you look at who these people are, there's no way anyone who is standing up against those guys and actually has a spine, yes. Now, will I say I'm going to vote for him? No, and here's why. Because anyone I ever say I'm voting for, it's the kiss of death. So please don't ask. If he wants to win,
one time I endorsed Joe Lieberman. He calls me and says, "Don't endorse me. You're not helping. You're killing me."
Right. I know.
All right. Good to have you back on Fox. Thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. When we come back, Hannity investigation. Wait till you find out. We have the evidence about Joe Biden and his past and how it will haunt him. Karl Rove on the state of the Republican Party. Later, Steve Scalise. You won't believe what Congresswoman Tlaib said about him. He is here tonight to respond. And we have our closing arguments and villain of the day straight ahead. All right, now as the Democrats make this very radical shift to the left heading into 2020, new reports are saying that Joe Biden is expected to announce his White House bid sometime in April. And while crazy Uncle Joe may seem like a moderate compared to this new crop of radical socialist Democrats, well, his past, remarks reveal just how out of touch he is with most Americans. Stuff you probably haven't seen before. Take a look.
Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
What kind of a chance would a northeastern liberal like Joe Biden stand in the South?
Better than anybody else. And you don't know my state. My state was a slave state. My state is a border state. My state is the 8th largest black population in the country. You got the first sort of mainstream African American who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
Now, on the same day, many Democrats refused to condemn hate. We are learning more disturbing details about Biden's political past. For example, he came out hard against a busing plan to integrate public schools in the 70s, told a local newspaper, uncovered by the Washington Post, that, quote, "I don't feel responsible for the sins of my father and grandfather." And get this, do you remember when Hillary Clinton faced fury from progressives when it was revealed she used the word super predator when talking about the 1994 crime bill? Well, just listen to these remarks from crazy Uncle Joe talking about the same law. Take a look.
And that is, unless we do something
about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct, but for simple, pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And, Madam President, we have predators on our streets.
Here with reaction, author of the brand new book, The Triumph of William McKinley. Fox News contributor Karl Rove is with us. There's so much happening here, and I know you've had stylistic differences with the president, and you've been very outspoken about him. And I also have known you over the years that you support a lot of his policies and the things that he's gotten done. I look at this new crop of Democrats. I looked at what happened today. I look at the new Green Deal that they're proposing, and I really think this is the worst we've ever seen this party. And I want to get your thoughts moving forward and what it means for the Republicans. 93% of Republicans supporting the president now, but what does it mean as we now head into 2020?
Well, you're right. They're extremely left, and it is probably both. We've seen left-wingers in the Democratic Party before, but we've never seen the mob that we've seen today, and they're taking the Democratic Party off the edge of the world. I mean, they're just falling off the edge. But we got to recognize this is a huge challenge for the Republican Party and a huge challenge for the president. And we need to, the president laid the predicate in the State of the Union address by saying we will not become a socialist country. But we can't leave it all on him. We've got to have Republican candidates from the top of the ticket to the bottom of the ticket. One, take this argument that the Democrats are laying out for a socialist economy seriously. Can't just dismiss it, can't just mock it. We have to take it on from top to bottom with a comprehensive rebuttal of why this is bad policy, why we can't afford it, why it's not in keeping with our values, what it would do to America. And then we have to, and this is a difficult point, point to a conservative answer to some of these challenges that our country faces. How will we make certain that people will have jobs? How will we make certain that people will be able to go to college? How will we make certain that people will have access to quality health care, but with conservative principles of liberty and freedom and choice and limited government driving those recommendations?
You know, look at the president, his tax cuts. Look at, we're now energy independent as a country. Look at his choice for justices. Look at what he did pulling us out of that horrific Iranian deal. Israel, North Korea concessions. I don't even know if I can think of a single thing policy-wise that you disagree with him on.
Yeah. Well, North Korea sanctions, I think you meant to say. That was, think about this. We've been played for about 25 years, 30 years by the grandfather, the father, and the son.
Absolutely.
And now we have the toughest sanctions in place, and they were done through the United Nations. And it's a sign of the success and the realism of the president on some of these issues that he was able to say to himself in that meeting, I'm not going to get what I told him. I told the American people I want to get, and so I'm going to do what might look like the wrong thing, but it's the tough thing and it's the right thing. I'm going to walk away from the table. If you're not going to do what you pledged that you would do, I'm not going to undo these very tough sanctions that we put in place that are squeezing the North Korean economy.
Well, let me ask you that. We now have watched this week 6 to 8 Democratic committees. They have signaled to America they have no interest in solving any American problem. The widest net ever cast after, I'm assuming just from Democrats' reaction, they're not expecting what they thought they would get with the Mueller report. So now they're on a plan B, C, and D, which is to investigate any and all things Trump, hoping something sticks. That's not serving the public. And more importantly, that is not oversight either. And I'm worried, and you lived through a part of this with Patrick Fitzgerald. I am now worried that it's going to be a never-ending push to get to impeachment and also to continually slander, smear, death by 1,000 cuts, and attempt to render Donald Trump unelectable in 2020. I don't hear enough Republican voices standing up saying enough is enough.
Yeah, well, look, I think you're right that that's what they intend to do. I think the American people are beginning to have a bad reaction to what they're seeing. Look, I may have been in the minority. I think I still am in the minority. I've always thought for a long period of time that Robert Mueller is going to come out with a report that is going to exonerate the president, and he's going to be the best possible defense, because the Democrats put so much hope and faith that he would somehow come up with something that would show that President Trump was a tool of Moscow and that Putin was pulling the strings and calling the tune. And when that doesn't turn out to be the case, I mean, Mueller is going to, he's been tough, no doubt about it. But look, every presidential
I didn't like
campaign
the team he
leaks.
put together. I don't like all Democrats. I don't like Hillary's attorney. I didn't like Andrew Weissman with his track record.
What happens though when the report comes, when the report is sent to the Attorney General, and there are no indictments of the president, no indictments of the people around him for Russian collusion? As you said earlier in your program, Paul Manafort, these are things that happened long before he was involved with the Trump campaign for 100 days. And my point is this: what is going to happen when the Mueller report comes out, I think, is that the Democrats are going to have this great hope that they had disappear in front of their eyes, and they're already over the top. That hearing with Matt Whitaker was over the top. The Michael Cohen, the Cohen hearing was over the top, and we're going to see more and more of this. And there'll be a point where the American people are going to make a judgment. These people should not be given power, any more power, because they can't be trusted with doing the job that we sent them there to do, which is do what's right for the country, not put their party and the impeachment of the president first and foremost.
And we've also learned again, Carl, as if we needed another, conservatism works. Conservative philosophy works. All right, Karl Rove, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, when we come back exclusively, Steve Scalise responds exclusively to Congresswoman Tlaib's vile remarks. Monica Crowley will be here. Also, I'm going to make a closing argument tonight about selective moral outrage and our villain of the day. Straight ahead. As we mentioned in my opening monologue, Democratic Party is now a party of hate, and Democratic Congresswoman Tlaib has joined many of her other colleagues, injecting herself into the party's ongoing anti-Semitism saga. Yesterday, tweeting out, quote, "Hard to watch Representative Scalise demand that Representative Ilhan Omar be removed from foreign affairs without wondering if it's steeped in Islamophobia." Congressman Omar is more than capable, Congresswoman Omar, of sitting on the committee making decisions that are in the best interest of her constituents and all Americans. Here to react exclusively, Washington Times conservative columnist Monica Crowley and House Minority Whip Steve Scalise. I don't even know how to respond to that. The point is, she calls Israel evil. She's made multiple anti-Semitic remarks. This is not the only time. And the Democrats didn't have the vote to condemn her, or the proper, I think, discipline would be to take her off that particular committee. Steve.
Well, Sean, first of all, it's very concerning that she continues to make these kind of anti-Semitic comments, questioning people that support Israel and the American-Israel relationship, first trying to imply that it was about money when groups like AIPAC don't even give money to members of Congress. Then she went further and started giving this old trope of this kind of dual allegiance, that you can't have an allegiance to America if you also support the nation of Israel as a Jewish state, which is just another anti-Semitic statement. And so ultimately, as she continues to make these kind of statements and not apologize for them, has nothing to do with her faith. It has to do with her anti-Semitic beliefs. And so the question really is posed to Speaker Pelosi: is she going to continue to keep her on this committee, the Committee on Foreign Affairs, which ultimately determines the policy of our nation, especially as it relates to our allies like Israel?
And Monica, Congresswoman Tlaib had made the same or similar comment. They forgot what country they represent. Again, the dual loyalty issue and stereotype. And then 2020 candidates are hanging out with Linda Sarsour, an anti-Semite, and, you know, somebody that's on stage with Kirsten Gillibrand, supported by others, supports Sharia, supports the genital mutilation of women.
You know, Sean, they rarely, if ever, apologize for these kinds of comments or these kinds of actions because they actually believe this. And when they do apologize, it's a sham apology, and it's only because they've been called out and they're getting media attention for it. Look, condemning the vile anti-Semitic hatred that we're seeing, should not be complicated, partisan, or difficult. And yet today what we saw is that the Democrats cannot even get together to do what should have been unanimous and thundering in terms of a condemnation of anti-Semitism. What the radicals are doing is normalizing anti-Semitism. What they're doing is turning it into the policy of the Democratic Party, and what the Democrats want to do is then turn it into the policy of the United States. The radicals have taken over the party. They are not being condemned in the way that Congressman Scalise and others have suggested, which is an open rebuke of her and throwing her off the Foreign Affairs Committee. They will not do it, so that means they are sanctioning those positions and actually taking the side of Palestinians and the terrorist groups that they support.
All right, thank you both. Congressman, sorry you had to go through that, and I'm glad you're not fazed at all because it's ridiculous. Appreciate you both being with us. All right, our closing argument tonight, we're going to explain the left's selective moral outrage. Also, our villain of the day is coming up as we continue. All right, tonight our closing argument exposes what is the left's selective moral outrage, because while they smear Trump supporters every second, minute, hour of every 24-hour day and week and month and year, Democrats mostly refuse to ever confront the disturbing turn towards anti-Semitism and bigotry in their own party. Unfortunately, it's just the latest display of their blatant hypocrisy. Remember, Democrats say they care about family separation at the border. Yeah, but then they won't meet with angel families who have been permanently separated from their loved ones because of illegal immigrant crime, and there are a lot of them. They smeared Justice Kavanaugh based on no evidence, and they just said, I believe. But mostly now they're silent on the serious, credible allegations against the Democratic Virginia Lieutenant Governor Fairfax. They rushed to judgment on Jussie Smollett and perpetrated an apparent hate crime hoax. They viciously rushed to judgment attacking the Covington students, Nicholas Sandmann, as you can see there, weeks earlier, who had to deal with death threats. And they had to watch their characters defamed repeatedly, day in and day out. You see the pattern here? The left rushes to judgment, batter, bludgeon, bloody all political opponents, weaponizing identity politics, where facts, they always come second. Fake news narratives, that comes first. Like the phony 2-year Trump-Russia collusion that is collapsing before their very eyes. So they're just going to move on to the next thing, ignoring the biggest abuse of power, corruption, scandal in history. Of course, the DNC, Christopher Steele, FISA abuses, and the fraud committed before FISA courts. You know, we've covered night after night, and we've been proven right. But it's also a great reminder of why we need to support the president at this time, and all while facing unprecedented opposition from the Washington, D.C. swamp that has cast the widest investigative net we've ever seen, as they speak of resistance. All right, time for our villain of the day. Well, it's a real dope. He's the near-deranged New York Times opinion columnist Paul Krugman. He had the nerve to tweet this out, a blatantly disgusting message, social media. Just to be clear, we condemn all forms of anti-Semitism, no matter where they come from. Here's his tweet. There are 3 things in life that are certain: death, taxes, unless you're Trump, and the persistence of anti-Semitism, but only one brand of anti-Semitism, and it's not on the left. Wow. Let not your heart be troubled. Laura Ingraham standing by. How are you?
Hannity, fantastic.